Hello, eCommerce SEO Summit. My name is Brodie. Thank you so much for attending my presentation today. So I'm going to be talking about organic product grids, quite an important topic in the e-commerce SEO space, in particular how ranking works across this particular feature on Google. So just to get started, a little bit of background. So I'm an independent SEO consultant based in Australia. Worked in SEO for about 11 years now. At the start of my time working in SEO, I worked in a few different agencies, and that was quite a good way to try out different approaches to SEO and expose yourself to a lot of different situations in the industry. And for the past 6 or so years, I've been working as a consultant. So I work with a lot of large brands, so across a vast variety of types of websites, including, TripAdvisor, Hewlett-Packard, a major player in the e-commerce space, and Shutterstock. And I also do quite a bit of writing in the SEO industry for publications, and my work is featured in quite a few big major publications. So a little bit of background is that I guess I'm known in the industry for tracking SERP features on Google. So if you're really interested in staying up to date with some of this stuff, I've got a SERP feature timeline on my website where I document a lot of changes that happen in Google search results. So one that I've been tracking a lot more recently is the AI overview rollout in the UK and Australia, and in the US in particular, and also features that have been changing in the e-commerce space. So if you're interested in that, you can check that out on my website. And if you're not as interested to keep up to date with the day-to-day changes, you can also subscribe to my monthly newsletter where I give a bit of a rundown on everything that changes and give a bit of an interpretation of what has happened that previous month. So as a starting point, merchant listings in particular cover 4 different surfaces. So we've got the product grids. So that's a major one that I'll be covering in this presentation. The product knowledge panels, which are essentially just a expanded variation of a single product grid result. Image search results, and you can see in that example, that's essentially when you've got the in-stock and pricing and brand information that shows up for images within image search. And also another major surface, which is in the shopping tab on Google, and you've got those free listing results that can appear in there. So a major change that's been happening recently, especially in the US, has been the expansion of different variations of product grid results. And even in Australia, where I'm based, in the past few months, they've completely launched. So before they launched, e-commerce results were more or less just your standard 10 blue links type result. But in the US in particular, we've got the expansion of this feature where they really do take up quite a bit of space in search results. And in this example here for washing machines, you've got a duplication of the first 8 product grid results that show on the first page. So a good feature to pay attention to if you are in the e-commerce space. So organic product grids are still readily increasing globally across a lot of different regions. We've seen a major increase in the UK in particular. In the US, they've been essentially a standalone feature for a couple of years now, but over the past year, we've even seen them increase even more. So to put that into numbers, we can see in the US, organic product grids are the most prominent out of every region, kind of followed pretty closely by the UK there, both sitting around about 15% of all search results within the SEMrush data set. And compared to, say, a country like Japan, where it's a lot lower. But pretty much across the board for Europe, Australia, UK, US, they are a default feature across mobile and desktop in the e-commerce space. So really important one to pay attention to and to make sure that you understand how to optimize for them and get the most visibility possible. So as a starting point, we really want to understand what the relevant analytics views that are available for tracking merchant listing results or product grid results. As a starting point, obviously an important tool in our tool set as SEOs is Google Search Console. There's a couple of different views in there which are really important. In particular, we've got the web search performance report view where you can see merchant listings by search appearance. And you can see that the two major features that relates to are the product grid results and also the product knowledge panel results. Then you've got a separate report in the performance report in Google Search Console for image search, so searching by image type, and you can also filter by merchant listings there. So that just relates to image search appearance for merchant listings. And also down the bottom there, you've got a merchant listings valid items report that you can effectively see all the different pages on your site that qualify for appearing within merchant listings. And you can see the overlay of impressions across that graph there that relates to both web search and also image search. So a bit of a combination between the two there. We've also got Merchant Center Next views. So within Merchant Center Next, you can actually filter by free listings, which does relate to these features. The difference between Search Console and Merchant Center Next is that Merchant Center Next is a combination of all of the free listing surfaces. So this actually includes the shopping tab as well for free listings. And there has also been some slight changes in Merchant Center Next where there's an online store tab within the dashboard that doesn't actually allow you to filter by free listings at this point. But I would expect that to expand in the near future. And finally, we've also got an important one, which is GA4. And there is a default channel group within GA4 that allows you to filter by organic shopping. So this is an important analytics view for us when we're looking at product grid results, because it actually sees us to see whether visitors coming to the site through these features are actually converting. So you can attribute transactions and revenue towards your efforts with product grid results. So really important one there. Something to keep in mind is that Google has actually done a bit of a reporting change with these features, particularly in Merchant Center Next, where they've started to add auto tagging parameters if you have your conversion settings enabled within Merchant Center, that they're actually adding those parameters to non-product detail pages. So what that is resulting is that you'll need to have some customization in GA4 to only include PDPs as the URL structure in question. Otherwise, you're going to include a lot of other data in there, which doesn't actually relate to the merchant listing results. So a good one to keep in mind. So as a starting point, it's really important to ensure that you have a thorough list of attributes that you're providing through to Google to generate these results. So there's a whole heap of attributes that Google has in their documentation relating to things like image link, description, brand, GTIN, NPN, color, size, material, and there's a whole host of others. This is just a really important point to ensure that the data that is actually appearing in these merchant listing results do relate to the product feed attributes. So you really want to be quite thorough with the information that you're providing there. And a good example of this, and this is just one that I came across during my research to add into this presentation for a site in Australia called catch.com.au. A lot of sites I think aren't doing this purposefully, but there may be a reason for why they might be doing it. But in this case, Catch here for this product page for a bed frame here, they're actually only supplying one of the product images from their product page within the feed itself. So the merchant listing result here within the grid, as you can see, is only pulling in one image from the product page. So that's a good example of not having a thorough spread of content being provided within the merchant listing results. And this can have an impact on not only conversions, but also rankings with the amount of content that you're providing there. In terms of feed management tools, this is a really important one to keep in mind for SEOs. Historically, it's been more of a paid ads side of things that have managed these feed management tools. But I think it's really important for SEOs to at least have some visibility over what the data is that can be controlled within feed management tools. Some of the examples of feed management tools that I've worked with in the past are Feedonomics is a big one, also Channable. Another one that I've used more recently for a Shopify store is this Shopify app called Simproses. It's quite a good one in terms of the flexibility. It allows you to optimize aspects of your feed management for SEO purposes. It is a bit more simplified compared to, say, Feedonomics, but within Shopify, it does an okay job of being able to have some flexibility there. So a major attribute for how Google ranks free listing results depends on the title of the product within the feed itself. So if you log into Merchant Center and you click on a particular product in there, within the title field itself, that data that is shown in there is the one that's actually going to show up in the product grid results. So we've got a bunch of different title sources. We've got things like the title on the product page itself. We've got potentially a title and structured data, we've got like the title tag, and then we've got the feed title. The feed title is the most important one by a long shot if you're wanting to influence the free listing results. And it's exactly effectively what you put into this field. So it's really important to keep that in mind if you are trying to influence these results, that the data that you have in Merchant Center is pretty much the source of truth in a lot of cases here. Starting with a few facts about the title attribute that you can have for your free listings. It does have a lot of influence on free listings, similar to if you were to add a keyword to your H1 on your page or your title tag for standard organic results, has a similar impact for free listings. So if you have a keyword in there, it's going to make it more relevant to show up for those results. So you want to be quite thorough with the information that you can include. It does influence click-through rate, obviously, and directly attributes to rankings of free listings. And it does allow a bit of optimization flexibility, because in the free listing titles itself, they don't have to be exactly the same as what you have on your product page. So you can have a bit more flexibility with the information that you include in there. Merchant features are another important aspect to keep in mind when you're optimizing for free listings. There's a ton of them available in most regions now. A lot of these were only available in the US at one point, but they've since expanded to other regions like the UK and Australia and parts of Europe, which is good to keep in mind if you are optimizing for these features. We've got things like the seller rating, top quality store badging, and you can see within Merchant Center Next, if you log in under the store quality tab, that you've got this shopping experience scorecard where you can assess how your store matches up to other stores within your industry. You've got things like promotions within the promotions tab. We'll give a bit of an example of that in just a moment. Local free listings. So if you have physical locations for your stores, you can actually get your products to appear on your Google business profiles at scale. Very useful one to kind of integrate your e-commerce efforts with your local SEO efforts. You've got buy now buttons. You've got different payment methods that can be shown on your free listings, and also things like loyalty programs. So example of the seller rating, this is one that has expanded a lot quite recently. Here's an example of if you search for coffee machines, and in most regions at the moment, but even for product listing pages or category pages, the seller rating actually shows by default if you have one on a lot of pages throughout your site, if they don't have product structured data and reviews marked up with aggregate rating. So in this example here, you've got a store ranking at the top results, called The Good Guys, who have a 4.5 rating with 11,000 reviews, compared to another store called Harvey Norman, who have an average rating of 4 with only 11 reviews. So for Harvey Norman, clearly quite an opportunity there to increase their seller rating, not only for free listing results, but just generally for across the site. Because if you have an average rating of above 3.5, your seller rating is going to show, and you need to maintain a high number of reviews within a 12-month period to maintain that seller rating. So it's not like something that you can just accumulate a ton of reviews for and just leave it. It's something that you need to continuously contribute to over time. So this example is for a promotion showing on a free listing result within a product grid here. So in this example here, you've got a coupon code that's showing up in the free listing result to save $10 at checkout for orders over $199. So in this example here, this is related to the promotions tab in Merchant Center and relates to a coupon code that has been set up and using free listings as a source here. So you can apply this to ads, free listings, or both. And in this case, looks like they've applied it to both. So keep in mind that there is a SEO opportunity to give more visibility to promotions on your site. A really important aspect with merchant listing results is ensuring that you have a competitive edge. Something that Google has been testing out more recently are these labels that show within grids. So we've got a few different labels that can show up at the moment. We've got a most popular product label. We've got a best price label. We've got a nearby label for products that are closer in physical location. And in my experience, products that have the best price are the ones that rank the highest in the top position in a lot of cases. Sometimes, like in this example, popularity does trump price, but it is important to keep in mind that you need to be quite competitive with the pricing that you show on your listings to be able to get visibility. Because if your price is a lot higher than competing products that are similar, then you're very unlikely to rank within the top 3 results within a grid, which means you essentially get no visibility and no clicks. Another major factor with competitive edge is your shipping policy. This is a really important one to keep in mind in general, just in the e-commerce space, the same with your returns policy. An interesting tidbit about returns and shipping is that in Google Search Console, there are warnings that can show in there for has merchant returns policy and shipping details. The reason why these warnings do show in Google Search Console for the majority of sites is because these settings are managed within Merchant Center itself. And the reason why Google Search Console is showing them is because they're not added in the structured data. Based on my experience, there isn't really any reason where you want to add this information in your structured data across the board. It's just a bit of a quirk within Search Console that they show these warnings, but not necessarily something that you need to make changes as a result of. Another aspect that's really important is structured data on your pages. Although we have seen, and based on this Search Engine Journal article, based on a Search Off the Record podcast, is that we've been told that Google may unify the approach between structured data and what you see in your product feeds. So that's a bit of a glimpse into the future about the way that Google could be headed with this particular feature, that they may be less reliant on structured data in some capacity. It is, however, important to keep in mind that there is kind of a sphere of influence when it comes to free listings. So at the very source, we've got the content that sits on the website itself or the product detail page in a lot of cases. As an external layer to that, and as a second influential aspect, is the product feeds, so information that you're directly feeding through to Google. And then on the outer layer, not as important as product feeds in my experience, but does play its role in a sense, is the structured data on the pages. In general, you want to have parity across all of these different sources. So you want to make sure that all the data that you're presenting to Google matches up. A good example of how all of this kind of functions with all these different layers is, for example, if you have a price shown on your website within the content, and the price might be $12 for a product, but within the feed it might say $10. What will happen within free listings is Google will prioritize the information that's shown on the website itself as the source of truth. So within the free listing result, even though the product may be lower within the product feeds, they'll end up showing whatever on the website content if it doesn't match up for whatever reason. So it's good to keep in mind that there is a layer of influence there where Google will, in a lot of cases, default to the website content. But like I said with the example with the title of the free listing result, is that Google often defaults to whatever is in the product feed itself. So there's sometimes caveats to how the influential factors work in that sense. Another interesting thing I wanted to run through in this presentation is a bit of a case study that I had with a client that I've been working with, where they effectively had aggregate offer used within their structured data across all of their product variant pages. So product pages on their site which didn't have variants on there, which are a bit more simple, they were okay and they were showing as valid within the merchant listings report. But for products that had aggregate offer shown on them within the structured data, where they're aggregating the price and the details of lots of different offers on the product page, it meant that they weren't valid for showing within merchant listings. And this is quite an interesting one because it's not something that Google Search Console shows in their report. All it does is they just don't show it. So it's not like they show an invalid result or any errors. But what I did with this client, and this was before Google had actually come out and said that product group was an alternative for variant pages, is that we made a change from using aggregate offer to then using product group in the structured data. And this enabled us to have, we went from essentially a few hundred product pages on the site being valid for merchant listings, then having a few thousand product pages. And that increase just kept going from there. So what that allowed us to do is essentially get a ton more clicks for non-branded queries, and also had a nice increase in revenue from the organic shopping channel just from making that simple change. So it's good to do a review of your merchant listing results to just make sure there aren't any inconsistencies there. Something that I like to look for generally is if you click on the product snippets tab within Google Search Console, that'll tend to show you an accurate view of how many different products on your site are valid for merchant listing results. And what you can do is you can actually compare that to the merchant listings report and see if those numbers match up in any capacity there. So with this example here, the site was showing a few thousand product snippets being valid and a lot less merchant listings. So clearly a disconnect there and something that needed to be resolved. So what are the major takeaways from this presentation? So it's really important to make use of all the reporting views that we have available for product grid results and merchant listings in general. We've got Google Search Console, Google Merchant Center Next, and GA4. Each of them play their part in understanding how performance tracks. Probably the most important one and the most relevant to your optimization efforts would have to be Google Search Console if you're optimizing for product grid results. This is the case in a lot of different situations, but it is important to keep in mind the influence that GMC Next and also GA4 have in forming your view around performance, especially GA4. And if you're making optimization efforts, you obviously want to attribute that to transactions and revenue increases from that increase in traffic. So important to be across that surface as well. It's important to ensure that the information that you're providing to Google is quite extensive in the form of the product feed attributes. The only way you can really assess this is in Merchant Center Next, there are notices that can appear in there. So also for Google Search Console, there are structured data notices that can appear there as well. But what tends to happen is you'll do a review of your merchant listings. You'll see some obvious gaps, like I showed for that catch.com.au site, where you might only have one product showing within the feed when you have multiple products, product images showing the feed. So you'll find a gap, and then you have to, I guess, track that back to the source of information. You also want to ensure that you have effective optimization of your product feed titles. This is quite an important one to keep in mind, and something that is often missed in my experience. An important aspect to keep in mind when you are optimizing your feed titles is to not just do it on a product by product basis. You want to find an approach that's scalable. So using attributes within your feed, it might be to do with size, material, weight, measurement, that sort of thing. Ensuring that your product titles are quite thorough and quite descriptive. And even in some cases, say if you're working with a client where their brand name may have some mention of the keyword of the industry that they're working with, it can be also good to include the brand name within the free listings, similar to what you might do for your title tag to get some relevance there for their space. As a more advanced mechanism of optimizing for free listings, it's good to keep in mind that there is a lot of different merchant features that are available, and these are constantly changing. The core ones to kind of stick to are the seller rating and ensuring that your top quality store badging is enabled across the regions that you're operating in, and ensuring that you're competitive across a lot of the metrics that are shown there. Another aspect, and more so from a business product fit kind of standpoint, is ensuring that you've got a competitive edge in the industry. So this relates to pricing, returns, and shipping. These are all attributes that customers care about, and it can play a big role in how your free listings are ranked within Google search results. And another aspect is to pay attention to the structured data notices that appear in Google Search Console. As mentioned, it does seem that Google could be moving away from being as reliant on structured data. I can't see them in any near future removing structured data as a requirement to rank within these results, because it does tie in so much to Google, how Google crawls websites and understands the content on there, especially in the e-commerce space. So it's just good to make sure that you've got parity in your structured data and what you're actually serving on your website and within your feed. And that's everything from me. If you'd like to stay updated on the world of SEO, feel free to follow me on LinkedIn, or feel free to reach out if you have any questions.